Hey everyone, in this video I'm going to be going over how to edit in the arrangement view of our Weekend Ableton projects so that you can copy and move clips, create transitions between songs, and I'm also going to show you how we use the loop feature in Ableton to repeat sections of the timeline when we need to. Let's talk real quick about automation and tempo. If you're in arrangement view and you press A on your computer keyboard, you're going to open up Ableton's automation mode, which is going to show you and allow you to automate things like volume and pan of tracks and also tempo. If I go down to the master track and click on this arrow here, it's going to open up and show me the tempo automation. Now, some of the tempo automation lines might be hidden, as you can see here. So let's adjust the viewable tempo ranges on the right here so that we can see all the tempos. Currently, Ableton is only showing me 75 to 120 BPM. So let's make the low tempo range be 64. And then we can go a little bit lower on the high tempo range. Let's make that 90 BPM. And I'm also, for now, going to take off this pencil tool by clicking this. Hovering my mouse over these points or changes in the automation lane, I can see that Battle Belongs is currently at 81 BPM, Raise a Hallelujah is at 82, and then so on. Let's just zoom in a little bit so you can see the tempo change happen in real time. So 82 is the tempo of Raise a Hallelujah. We're going to be going into 69, which is the tempo of Beauty in the Death. And let's just play this back, and you can watch the global tempo up here change as I do this. Three, 4, 1, 2, 3. If I wanted to bump up the tempo of a song a bit or slow it down just a touch, I can do that here in the tempo automation. Let's say I wanted to bump up the tempo for Raise a Hallelujah just a touch. So what I want to do is take my mouse pointer and I want to hover it near but not on the tempo automation line that is under that song so that the line turns blue. And you can see that if I get too close to the line itself, it's going to show me a potential adjustment point that I could create, but I don't want to do that. So if you're having trouble getting your mouse pointer positioned just right for this, you can also hold down Shift while you do this, and it's going to make it easier. And then I just want to click and drag that line up or down, and you can see the tempo increments adjust as I do that. So as we're creating and editing the transitions between songs, one thing to keep in mind is that all the automation, tempo, and even time signatures are all timeline dependent. So if I wanted to, let's say, create a direct transition from Battle Belongs to Raise a Hallelujah, I don't want to grab all these clips here from Raise a Hallelujah and then drag them over to the left, because then my tempo and possibly other things will be wrong for that song. So I'm going to show you a different way to create the transitions. So before I get into talking about how to create the transitions between songs, let me just go over really quick how to move and copy clips in the arrangement view and a few reasons why you might want to do that. You might want to move a clip in the arrangement view if you want to send a specific backing track part to a different output. So here we have in the song Raise a Hallelujah, we have the pad and strings backing track and the clav 3 backing track, both going to outputs 3 and 4, because you can see here that they're part of this blue synth aux 1 through 4 grouping. But currently I have nothing sent to outputs 5 and 6 on this song, because you can see I've deactivated all the backing tracks in this light red area, which is the synth aux 5 through 8 grouping. So to give my sound engineer a bit more separation of the backing tracks for mixing purposes, I can move clav 3 to one of the synth aux 5 through 8 group. So what I'm going to do is move this clav 3 clip down to this track here, where I have an empty spot for it. So that's the synth aux 8 track. And first I'm going to move my mouse up to the timeline so I can see the magnifying glass. And I'm going to click and drag down to zoom in. And as I'm zooming, I can also move my mouse to the left and right to make sure I'm getting the start point right here in the center of my view. All right, now that I'm zoomed in a bit, I can make sure that when I move it, I'm keeping the same left and right position, because I don't want to move that. Then I'm going to select clav 3 and click and drag down. And again, make sure your left and right position is correct. And then I'm just going to drop it right there. Now Clav 3 is going to play out of output 5 and 6. Let's say I want to have a count in into a specific section of a song other than just the very start of the song. So you might want to do this, say, in the song Raise a Hallelujah before verse 2, because maybe your singer or your band keeps missing that entrance. So the first thing I want to do is find that exact measure I want to do that at. So let's just activate the song track and listen to where exactly that is in the song. So I've already done that, and I found that measure 229 in the Ableton timeline is where that is. So a couple ways I can copy and paste clips. The first way is to select one full measure of the count in here, and then I'm going to press Command-C to copy it. Then I'm going to move my mouse cursor here to measure 229 on the count-in track, and then press Command-V to paste. Another way I can do it is to just click and drag the clip manually while holding down the Option key so that it copies it. And then you're going to see this plus sign here that you know that you're going to be copying it. And then just dropping it wherever I want it to go. So when you receive your Ableton project for the weekend, we're going to send it to you with this arbitrary amount of space between songs. So this is going to allow you to have the flexibility, if you so choose, to create direct transitions between the songs and musical elements. Now, you don't necessarily have to edit in a direct transition between the songs if you don't want to, especially if you want to have, say, a out-of-time musical element, such as a song tag between two songs. But creating a direct transition is going to have the benefit of having a tight transition between the songs, and it's going to maintain consistency from gathering to gathering in a weekend. This is also going to free up your drummer or whoever is starting and stopping Ableton playback to be more engaged with the worship and playing their instrument and not have to take the time or the trouble to start another song. So this editing option given to the worship leader is going to allow them to take more ownership for the needs of their specific campus when it comes to the flow of the gathering. Here we have our example weekend, and let's just say that I decide that I want a direct transition between song 1, There Is Nothing That Our God Can't Do, and song 2, Graves into Gardens. So the first thing I'm going to do is make a big general edit and use the cut time feature to delete most of the space between these two songs. So let's zoom in a bit and show that blank space in the middle of my view. So all I have to do is select on one of the tracks. It doesn't matter which one. We're just going to choose the click down track. And my first cut doesn't need to be exact, but it's going to get me in the ballpark. So after I've selected on the track, I'm going to go up here into Edit in the Live menu and choose Cut Time. And the key command for that is Shift-Command-X. So then I can zoom in a bit more and make another smaller cut to get a bit more exact to what I'm looking for. When you're doing these initial edits, just make sure that you're cutting exactly to the start of measures on the grid. And the starts of measures are always on the whole number. And when you start zooming in more and more, Ableton's going to also show you the subdivisions of the beats in a measure by showing you the decimal divisions in the number. All right, so after I've made a few cuts, I want to go and listen to the transition to see what I need to do from here. One, two, three, 2, 2, 3. In deciding if the transition edit that you've made has the correct amount of space, a couple things you can do. You're going to want to imagine that the audience is going to be clapping between the songs, that the band is maybe crashing out at this spot if that's something you want the band to do. You can also be imagining that your drummer might be playing a cymbal swell into the next song, or the guitar player could be swelling, or your keyboard player, or maybe there's a swell even in the loops, so that's happening as well, and creating something going on in that space so it doesn't feel too dead. And again, you don't want it to be too quick. So that's, again, this is something that you as a worship leader can design for the need of your campus. Let's make another cut time edit. And again, just keeping in mind that at this level, I want to cut whole measures still. One, two, three, two, two, three. Let's say that you want to make even a finer edit where you need to cut less than a measure. And you can do this at this point. I would say to keep it to a half of measure or to cut it at the full beat. One, two, three, two, two, three. And you can see this darker area of the timeline here where Ableton looks like it made a 2/4 bar. Once you feel the timing is correct between songs, you can then make clip edits if needed to make the transition sound smoother. So you can hear how when I made the edit, the sound of the backing tracks now abruptly stop. So what I want to do is extend the ends of the clips out to the right so that they fade out during the count-in of the next song. Many times you're going to need to do this type of edit with ambient pads since they fade out at the end of a song. So let's start with pad 2, and I'm going to place my mouse cursor to the right of the clip until I see this bracket here, and then I'm going to click and drag it to the right. So let's also do that with pad 1. And I can see as I'm dragging pad 1 to the right, I'm also cutting into the sound of the drone pad of Graves into Gardens. So a couple things I can do with this. I could create a fade out of pad 1 and then a fade into the drone pad. And to do this, I'm going to place my mouse cursor at the top corner here of pad 1 until I see this little square. And then I'm going to take that little square and then I'm going to click and drag that in towards the clip. Let's also do this with the drone pad. Now let's listen to it. One, two, three, two, two, three. If you're having trouble accessing the fades on the clips, you might have automation mode on, so turn that off by pressing A. Or I can create a crossfade between these two clips, which is going to allow me to hear a fade out of pad 1 while I'm hearing a fade into the drone pad. And to do that, I'm going to grab the corner square here again, and then I'm going to click and drag it into the adjacent clip. Now I can grab all these squares and move them right or left to adjust that crossfade to exactly how I want it. 1, 2, 3, 2, 2, 3. So how you create your fades at the transitions of songs will also depend on the key that you're coming out of and the key that you're going into. So there's nothing that our God can't do is currently in the key of G, and it's going into the key of D, which is what Graves into Gardens is currently in. So the crossfade seems to work nice for this because of the close relationship of those two keys. But let's just say, for example, that we're going from the key of B into the key of C. Then, as you know, there are very few common notes between those two keys, and your fades then would maybe look more like this, where you're fading out the pads of There's Nothing That Our God Can't Do earlier, so they don't create dissonance or clashing with this drone pad of Graves into Gardens. Just remember to not cut time over a song locator flag, otherwise you're going to delete it. So feel free to move that locator point to the right before you make your cut time edit. Let's say you created this transition at Wednesday rehearsal and it felt pretty good to you then, but you get in on Sunday morning and as you're playing it, you realize that now for whatever reason, that transition needs to be a bit longer. So what I'm going to show you is basically the opposite of cut time, which is insert silence. So to do this, I'm just going to place my cursor with my mouse on any track will do. At the place where I want to insert the silence. So for us, that's going to be right at the end of There's Nothing That Our God Can't Do, and the beginning of Graves into Gardens right here at the start of the 6/8 time signature. Then all I'm going to do is click and drag with my mouse to the right and select the amount of time that I want to insert. So let's choose 2/8 notes for this. And then in the menu under Create, I'm going to select Insert Silence. And the key command for that is Command I. So after I do this, I'm going to need to go back in and re-edit the endings of those backing tracks for Nothing That Our God Can Do because of the Insert Silence that I created. One thing to keep an eye on as you're making edits between songs is the tempo automation. So let's press A to open that up and take a look. So you can see as I made the insert silence edit, the tempo is now changing a bit earlier. Not that that's going to be a huge problem, but you could slide those tempo points back over to the right to the actual start of Graves into Gardens. And as you're moving those tempo points right or left along the timeline, just make sure to hold down Shift as you're dragging them, and that's going to lock the current tempo vertically so it doesn't move slightly up or down as you're dragging them. Another edit that you might want to do in the arrangement view is to duplicate a section of a song. So let's say that I wanted to repeat a final chorus of Graves into Gardens. And after listening to the song track, I can see and hear that the chorus I want to repeat currently is from measure 408 to 422 in the Ableton timeline ruler. So what we're going to do is select that area that we want to duplicate. And then I'm going to choose Duplicate Time in the Edit menu. And now when you do this, the edit may sound a bit abrupt, like here in the pads and the organs. You can hear that bump in the audio. So I can use the crossfade feature to smooth that out. I want to show you how we use the loop feature in Ableton. So we often use this to repeat a section of the gathering, usually one measure, and then have the ability to take off that loop by means of a MIDI or computer keyboard mapping so that the band can then be taken into a new song. One common way we're going to use this is when we have the band playing quietly under the Vision and Offering part of the gathering, and then seamlessly transition into a follow-up song in the same tempo of that V&O. Three, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Loop. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. This box here will deactivate and reactivate the loop. You can see as I press it, these fences here will go gray. So that's turned on and that's turned off. One thing to keep in mind with these loop fences is that before you start making cut time adjustments to the arrangement view, take a mental note of where we've put these fences because sometimes they move as you are making cut time edits. So right now, they're one measure before the start of the Good Grace reprise. So let's say you have made a cut time edit and your loop fences have moved. So I can just drag them back to where they need to be by just clicking them and dragging them to where they need to go. We assign a MIDI and computer keyboard mapping that's going to toggle the deactivation and reactivation of the loop feature when it's pressed. And that MIDI mapping is also going to play back a short snippet of audio where you hear the word loop, which lets the band know that the loop has been deactivated and Ableton is continuing on to the next song. And this snippet of audio resides in the session view, and it's actually on its own track called loop. And this track can be outputted to the click track output, which is 8. Just remember that after you've played a gathering, your loop feature is most likely going to be turned off. So what you're going to need to do is to turn this loop feature back on before the start of your next gathering so that you have it ready to go. That's the end of the video. Thanks for watching.